So GOP presidential frontrunner Donald Trump says Dr. Ben Carson's campaign is stumbling. Trump adding he thinks Carson isn't tough enough to handle serious issues and lacks the necessary foreign policy experience to be president. Listen.
I think it is in free fall. I think if you look over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and maybe I helped it along by making a speech 2 weeks ago, which I thought was a really good speech. I was very proud of it. I spoke for about an hour and a half with no notes. His consultant said that he is incapable of learning foreign policy. They were exasperated. We can't have a man incapable of learning foreign policy. Can't have it. They said he was incapable of learning. That's devastating.
Larry Sabato is the director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Larry, thank you very much. All right. So, it's no surprise that Donald Trump obviously is going to pick on his most largest competitor, and that would be Ben Carson, saying that he's in a free fall because of his alleged lack of foreign policy expertise. His poll numbers have shown a little bit of a fall. In fact, in New Hampshire, Trump is on top with 27%. And Carson's actually further down and tied for fourth with Jeb Bush at 9%. What has happened to Ben Carson's campaign, and how much of it is due to his foreign policy inexperience?
Donald Trump has sensed weakness, and whenever he senses weakness, you can be certain he's going to strike. He goes for the jugular. I don't think Carson's decline has had anything to do with Donald Trump's speech or anything else that he has said. But I do think it has had something to do with a big event, and big events can have big consequences in politics. Paris was the big event. If Ben Carson has a weakness, it is clearly foreign policy, and that's become evident over the past really few months, not just a few days or weeks. And so as a consequence, Carson has been dipping. Now, I wouldn't say it's a free fall. I would say it's a decline. It may be permanent. It may be temporary. Remember, we're in November in the Thanksgiving season, and what goes down can come up, and what goes up can come down.
Of course. And, political outsiders, though, have had sort of the upper hand, it seems. A lot of people wanted to look outside of Washington. But I will say that with the foreign policy measures that have been taking place and the criticism in Washington, a lot of the outsiders are now being extra scrutinized as far as who would be most qualified. Ben Carson has himself come out and said that he would be willing to learn. In other words, that he would be entering the Oval Office willing to learn as he goes, whereas we kind of think, maybe this should be someone who enters the office knowing and having been there. Donald Trump himself doesn't necessarily have foreign policy experience either, though.
Well, that's exactly right. Trump doesn't have any office experience or really foreign policy experience. The difference, though, is that Ben Carson, to be blunt about it, is a very nice guy. And people tend to like him. And so you look at the measures on which he's rated, he's sky high on a good guy, somebody who cares about you, somebody I'd like to sit down and have dinner with or a beer with. What does Trump score highly on? Toughness, toughness, toughness. What's needed in a foreign policy crisis? Toughness.
Larry Sabato, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for joining us.